Welcome to this conversation with music legend Leland Sklar. This is the full version of the conversation.
I want to say welcome to my channel, Mr. Leland Sklar. Do you prefer to be called Lee or Leland or?
Lee's fine. Lee's fine. We're friends, so we'll.
And Eileen told me to tell you that you're like her favorite person ever. So
she's such a rascal. Where are you located?
I'm in Sweden, on Gotland, an island of Sweden.
Fantastic. I love it there so much.
You've been to Gotland?
Not to Gotland, but I've been all over Sweden.
Oh, and, you need to come to Gotland.
I would love to. Next time I'm over there.
Yes. I used to work at a 1950s themed diner. Like, there was some 60s and 70s sprinkled in there too, but mostly Elvis and Marilyn Monroe motif.
Oh, that's great.
So, and I was thinking about, what, there's so many things that you must have been asked so many questions and had so many interviews, but I don't really like the word interview, you know? I want to just have a conversation, talk about what we're passionate about. And the things that I wanted to talk to you about, I didn't really have straight up questions written out. It was more like concepts, like.
Okay, I'm good with anything you want.
Cool. So I watched a bit of this concert, and there was Steve. Wait, how do you say his name? Lukather. Steve Lukather was talking about how when he was this punk zit-faced kid, he really wanted you to believe in him, and he really wanted you to like him, and the fact that you did, and that just meant the world to him. That just made me think how much respect is worth in this world, and how like you just being there in a recording studio would just like must give people on all ends of the spectrum of fame and celebrity like this, everything's going to be okay now because Lee's here.
Yeah, there's an element, there's probably an element of that. And with Steve, he was one, because I've known Steve, he was 19 when we first started working. And he's one of the most talented musicians I'd ever met. His guitar playing, he's also a really good pianist. And I've always been supportive. I mean, it's kind of like the tour we just did with Phil Collins, his Not Dead Yet tour. His son, Nicholas, was playing drums on it. And when we started the tour, Nicholas was 16 and carrying it. I mean, here we're playing like, you know, anything from 18 to 80,000 seaters a night. And he came out and just killed it every night. But every night in the dressing room before the show, we would sit and talk because he was really hungry. And I really believe in mentoring and, you know, and helping new generations of anything. So with players like Lukather and with Nicholas and stuff, it's really fun to sit with them and talk and give them, you know, just support and ideas, because they're really good musicians to start with. So it's really giving them confidence that I think is the important thing, and letting them know that they are good and they're doing the right thing.
It's probably also really, really valuable getting this perspective of a person who has 50 years of experience, and it's like, for example, I've heard that when one of the actors for Avengers got the part, Chris Evans, he immediately got like a counselor. Like, he's like, I know my life is about to change and I'm going to need someone to talk me through this process of being famous, really being in the public eye. And I think that's probably so vital to, especially young musicians out there that are just dealing with people knowing who they are.
Yeah, well, I think that was probably an incredibly smart thing that he did in getting that kind of help, because I think a lot of people that go from obscurity to fame overnight don't handle it well, and they get surrounded with sycophants that are telling them all the wrong things because they want to be close and they want to have a job with them and all that. And a lot of those people end up in really kind of screwed up in life. But the idea that he went and wanted to get counseling and talk to somebody to help him through what was about to happen. It shows what a smart person he was to do that. There's not many, I don't think many would do that.
Yeah. It's like so many people go into all these things so starry-eyed, but the rock and roll music world in general is just so famous for a lot of pain, a lot of drugs and alcohol and regrets. And it's just, it must be really hard when you've like cared about someone. Hello.
She's wonderful. She's been coming to our house once a week for many, many, many years, and look like family.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. But yeah, it's one of these things that there can be a dark side to all professions, but music really, there's a lot of things laid out on the table for people, and some people really succumb to the dark side of it, and I've had many, many people in my life that have totally lost it or died from the lifestyle, but you can only do so much for somebody. You know, it's up to them to take control. Ultimately, all you can do is offer a shoulder and support once they recognize they need help. But others I know have been doing this forever, and they're they've totally with it. It's not an issue for them. It's a gig. It's a job.
Yeah. It's like going into something for the music, for that feeling of connecting with. I'm not a musician myself. I love to sing, but I've been around musicians, and when they're just in that zone where they're just playing their hearts out and they just like don't even notice time passing, that must be such an amazing feeling.
It's magic. It's absolutely magic. That's always the hard part. Like when you try to explain to people what it's like, and it's not just, like being on stage in front of massive audiences. I get the same feeling if I'm playing in a club with 30 people in it. There's just in fact, sometimes 30 people is better than 80,000 because they're right there in front of you. You can taste them. They're right there. And sometimes you're talking to them during the show. There's this relationship that develops. But I've been playing music since I was 5 years old, and so it's my DNA. It's what I live for. And I feel very fortunate. I've worked incredibly hard, but I feel incredibly fortunate that it worked out, because I know a lot of great musicians that the right opportunities didn't open themselves up to them. And for me, it was a momentary meeting with one person that changed my entire direction in life. And that was James Taylor. When James came to a rehearsal for a band that I was in, and nobody knew who he was yet either. And this was back in 1969. And he came and hung out at our rehearsal through a mutual friend for a day. And when an opportunity for him to work came up, he remembered me, and they needed a bass player. And next thing I know, I think I'm doing one show with a guy, and it turns into the next half a century. Never say no.
Yeah. And now you've worked, like, it would be a much shorter list of who you have not worked with, huh?
Yeah. I've been very fortunate. I mean, it's been really a great run. And the thing that I've enjoyed so much is the world of a studio musician, because you get to do everything as compared to being just in a band, which would be great. But to be able to one day be doing, a hip hop session, the next day a movie, the next day rock and roll, the next day, it's just the variety of things keeps you kind of excited and fresh and on your toes all the time, because you're never quite sure what you're getting into. And I still get anxious about it. If you get complacent about this, then you're done. It's over.
Totally. So my husband wanted me to ask you a very fun question.
Yeah.
How did he phrase it? Do you ever get starstruck about meeting anyone anymore?
Yeah, I guess it's an element of starstruck, but there's certain people, like if I'm doing a project and I walk in a studio, and a lot of those people would not be the kind of people other people would expect you to be starstruck by. it's like I've done a number of albums with Barbara Streisand, and when you walk in and you see Streisand there, you just, even though we're friends and everything, like the first time I walked in, I just kind of went, wow, that's Barbara. And one of the iconic characters of my growing up was an actor named Andy Griffith. And he had a show called The Andy Griffith Show, and all this with Mayberry and all that. Well, I did 2 albums with Andy. They were contemporary gospel albums because that's what the music he loved. And I found myself, when I walked in the studio and I saw him, I mean, this is a guy I've looked at since childhood. And it kind of freaked me out a little bit. You just kind of go, wow. Occasionally those moments happen. But I get really excited still about it. I mean, when I would do an album, say, like with Joe Cocker, and you walk in and there's Joe Cocker, or I walk in the studio and I'm working with Ray Charles and people like that, or Willie Nelson, and these kind of people, they're iconic figures in our industry. So when you suddenly find yourself hanging out with them, and they're calling you by your first name, and you're going, "This is weird. Why is he talking to me?" Kind of thing, So I think there's an element, not so much starstruck, but I think there's fanboy. I think it's more of that, where I really respect and admire people's accomplishments. And so when you suddenly find yourself in a situation and you're with somebody who's had an impact, or you love their music, and all of a sudden you're a part of their music, it's pretty exciting. I still get off on it.
This is another little random concept that I wrote down to talk about. The tension and energy of recording. Like, I imagine it must be so stressful if there's like so many different factors coming into it, like timed restraints and big one, egos, divas, like people fighting about creative control.
Well, that's usually, if I am in that situation, I'll just kill the person and then bury them somewhere where they can't be found. No, it's a fascinating environment to be in the studio. There's an element of, I'm one of these people. I don't always think about the good old days, because today is today and tomorrow is tomorrow, and I want to keep moving forward. But there was when I first started, most of the sessions we did, rather than being people working in their home studios and things like that, it was all in the legitimate recording studios. And generally, at a minimum, there would be 4 musicians in the room, maybe 6, maybe 40. You don't know. But the energy and ideas that fly around a room when you have a lot of creative people in a room is exhilarating. And it's really exciting. And so when I find myself in a studio in those situations, there's an element of stress and anxiety, because generally you're on a time thing. And it's not like a lot of businesses where you go in, and if it doesn't feel like, you might have a job where you kind of go, it doesn't feel right today. Let's go see a movie. Forget about it. We'll come back tomorrow. Here, you're handed a blank canvas every day, and you need to leave with as close to a masterpiece as you can. You could be sick as a dog. Anything could be going on. But at the end of the day, the studio costs a lot of money. The band costs a lot of money, schedules, all those things. So you don't have the luxury of saying, let's try it tomorrow. Sometimes you're on a project that's going to be in the studio for a week or 2, and you have a little more flexibility, but a great many projects are just a day or 2, and you have a lot of material to accomplish during that period. So the focus is very intense. I mean, you have to hunker down, and everybody's on their A game and throwing out ideas. And 99.9% of the time it works. You hire good enough people for it. And especially like most of the players that I end up working with, they've all been doing this a long time. And there's a certain thing, the minute we all walk in the room, it comes together, and we can kind of suss out, even if the material is somewhat skeletal that the artist has brought in, we can flesh it out pretty well. Now, on occasion, you end up working, with some people that have some ego issues, and generally, those are new artists that people have been telling them, oh, you're the greatest, you're going to be the next big thing, and you're sitting with somebody who's giving you direction in the studio, and you're kind of going, so this is your first album, and this is like my 2600 something album, and you're not really willing to listen to what we have to say, kind of thing. You're just, but there are artists, you come in the studio with them and they blow you away. They're new, but they've been building towards it a long time, and they're very focused on what they want on something. And I'm really happy to accommodate them and do the best job we possibly can. Because when you leave the studio that day, the only person that really has to be happy is the artist. I mean, you want the band to be, but we're going on to our next job. They're living and dying potentially on their career by that day. If they end up with something that is mediocre, if they've got a deal with a label and the label hears it and goes, no, don't think so, next, and they're gone. I would think the stress for the artist would be greater than the stress that I feel, because I've already got another gig lined up. For them, that's the gig.
I imagine that you could probably just like look at someone and hear them like play a few notes, and like just by the way they hold themselves and the way they hold their instrument or the way whatever, you could probably tell within like 30 seconds whether they have that secret sauce.
Yeah, you can, to a certain extent. Sometimes it takes a little while, because a lot of times they'll come in and they're intimidated by the room full of players. Like maybe they haven't had much experience working with other musicians. A lot of them, they've maybe come out of like maybe doing folk clubs, and it's just them and their guitar, and they don't know what it's like to play with a drummer, and have time, in their song. But once they settle in and realize, now I have to simplify what I'm doing, because now I've got all these other people and things like that. Then it's really good. But we can, as players, can kind of judge quickly, but it may take a little bit longer for the artist to settle in, because they're the one in uncharted territory a lot of times. But,
do you ever just like want to give them advice and just
yeah,
they're going to want to take it or not?
Oh no! I mean, when I show up to a session, and this is just the way I think, but a lot of players I know still think the same. My dogs are howling outside.
I could hear that.
They're basset hounds, a couple of basset hounds, I think. Hold on, I'm just gonna. Yeah, they're just sitting outside the thing here, howling away. They're crazy dogs.
Oh, it's okay.
Guys, chill.
You're upstaging right now.
What was that? Let's get back to the question again. Yeah. Sorry.
What was it about wanting to give these newbies advice?
Oh, advice and things. Yeah, I mean, when I show up to a session, I know my job that I've been hired for is to play bass, but I think it's imperative that you go in as a musician. After you've recorded a song, you listen to the playback. You don't just sit and get on your phone in the studio and ignore things. You go in, you listen to the playback, and if you have suggestions, you put them out. And they may not get used, but I think it's important to contribute on that level. And there's so many times where people have come in with a song and they play it for us. And you kind of listen to it and you go, well, they're just kind of starting it, but it could use an introduction, maybe a little something, or the bridge isn't really good. And the players generally kind of hunker down and make something out of it. You contribute more than just your part, because so many times when I go to work and I show up there isn't like music written out or anything. There might be a chord sheet or something like that, but they're really leaving it in your corner to create the parts for them. And so beyond just creating your part, you get focused on the entirety of the song or the project. But I always tell people, and I've said this a million times, but I really believe it. I say, everything I do is etched in mud. It's not etched in stone. So if somebody has an idea, throw it out. If they have an idea for a bass part for me, one of the other musicians or the artist, tell me what you think and let me take a shot at it and see I don't know everything, so it's nice to have other ideas. But you might give the some suggestions for something, and the artist may go, "No, yeah, I've been doing it like this way a long time. Really like to keep it this way." And you go, "Fine, that's your call." So, but it's a collaborative effort. I mean, everybody's involved and engaged.
I love that. It's no fun having a job where it's just like, okay, you give me thing, I give you product, end of story. It's like, it's all about the collaboration for me and my little job of editing for other YouTubers. I want them to take my tiny bit of expertise and opinions and care about them.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
See, we all have our own niche. And not everybody knows everything about everything. So it's really nice to find somebody that when you've maybe hit a certain wall in what you're doing and you're really not quite sure. I mean, I have a friend, there's a place here where I live in Pasadena called Dino Computers, and there's a guy I know named Steve Wiley there. And if something goes wrong with my computer, I can sit here all day trying to figure it out. I call Steve up and he just goes, "Oh, hit this." And he touch one thing and everything's fixed. I mean, I love that he knows this so well. And it's an area that I can navigate, but when it comes down to peeling that first layer of the onion off, I'm totally lost at that point, where he can dig all the way to the core. He knows everything that's going on. So it's great that you do that for YouTubers. I've really enjoyed. I've been so consumed every day by YouTube. I've got my channel on there now. Today I think I did my 556th video since March of last year. So it's going crazy.
YouTube is addicting. There's just something about that community and the comments and wanting to connect with people.
Yeah, and especially during COVID. It's been an amazing thing. I think I've got almost 157,000 people on my channel, and it's become a real family on it. I do twice a month. I do a live stream, like a 2 to 2.5 hour live stream, and these people have all become friends. And I sit and watch the chat window, and they're all talking to each other and stuff, and it's become like this big family. And I love it. And to have had something like this evolve during a period of such separation and lockdown has been pretty amazing. But I feel I'm really dedicated to it. I mean, I just before contacting you, I just finished, I'm uploading today's video, and and I really love it. It's been a lot of fun. It's given a positive thing to do during a really negative period of time. How did you guys do there on the island with COVID?
Gotland is very much isolated from the rest of the world. So we didn't get hit so hard. And in Sweden, we didn't have any mask mandates or lockdowns, but people had personal integrity, like stayed home when they felt the slightest bit ill and didn't need a mask. They didn't go out if they felt sick. So
good.
It was a different way of doing things. And Swedes are naturally like, they keep their distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true what they say about the cold Northerners.
That's great. Yeah, because I just finished doing a project the other day with a guy named Brett McKenzie. There's a group in New Zealand called the Flight of the Conchords, and Brett's half of that team. But we talked about how New Zealand dealt with it all too, because their prime minister, the minute COVID hit, shut the island down. And they've got, occasional cases, but they knew what was going on. They were monitoring and they could deal with it. Where like here in the States, it became all about personal liberties and, help, and rather than the betterment of the community and stuff. So I kind of assumed when you said it was an island that it was probably that kind of a situation for you guys too there.
I'm a bit concerned about the summer and things maybe opening a bit prematurely.
Me too.
There have been a few waves, but There are probably up to about people born in 1960 and lower can schedule their vaccinations. So they'll get to me born in the 80s, probably by the end of the summer.
Okay. Yeah, because here now in the States now it's, I think, 12 years old and above can get their shots. But there's a whole pile of people that think that the vaccines are a conspiracy and all this stuff. So yeah, I've had both my shots, and our band, the band that I'm in, we all got our shots and have our bubbles. So we're rehearsing and recording and playing, and there's no live gigs for the most part. The stuff we have booked is later in the year, like October, November, kind of starting up. And everything's predicated on how safe it is. If there's another big resurgence, then we can bail on it. But yeah, I don't even want to, we won't get into the stupidity of the way this was handled and all that stuff. But it's great that you guys had it, a sense of community and taking care of doing it the right way, because it's scary as hell.
Yeah, I lost my grandma. She was at a nursing home, and somebody went and visited the whole ward and got everybody infected.
Yeah, I've lost a number of people. Almost lost my brother-in-law about 2 months ago. He was in ICU and really, really sick, but he came out of it okay. But a lot of people didn't. So it's unbelievable. I mean, how the face of a planet can change so dramatically in the course of a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so back to music.
All right, back to music. Who has, doesn't have to be just one who, but who has left a lasting impression on you?
Well, I'll tell you, my life really changed dramatically when the Beatles hit. And, I would say that the footprint that they left when they came on the scene stands today. So they were a huge part of it for me. But my career and my upbringing, because when I started as a pianist when I was a small child, and that was all classic piano. So I mean, there's so many composers throughout the classical idiom that that have really impacted how I think about music and things. One of the people who had a lasting impact on me was my junior high school music teacher. When I was a pianist when I went into junior high, but they had lots of piano players, and he encouraged me to try bass, and that changed the whole course of my life. So his name was Theodore Lynn, and I'm forever grateful to him for that. So, sometimes those kind of things come from other directions, but to me, a great teacher can be such a huge part of your life. Bad teachers can ruin your life, and great teachers can make your life. So I was lucky. I had a few stinkers in there, but I was lucky with my music teacher.
Luckier than me. My sixth grade teacher and orchestra, I played the violin in fifth grade. All the kids played violin in fifth grade in my part of Utah. And then sixth grade, all we did was watch musicals. So I watched all the classics, Oklahoma and all, etc. All things that had been made up to that point, it seemed, but not much actual learning.
So where did you grow up then, in Utah?
I grew up in Ogden, Utah.
Oh, okay. So how did you end up over in where you are?
I met my Swedish husband in Germany. We were with a traveling Christian theater company. So we traveled all over 3 continents, and we performed plays in 4 different languages and had lots of adventures for a decade until I found out I was going to have twins in South Africa, and
wow.
Life changed very dramatically.
Wow. Oh, that's great though. That's a nice adventure. Yeah, I've done a lot of stuff within that idiom too, because I did albums with like Second Chapter of Acts and Stephen Curtis Chapman, and Twyla Paris, Avalon. I just did the John Michael Talbot the other day. So it was,
yeah, I know all those names.
yeah.
So who have you performed with that's left an impression on you?
Well, certainly James Taylor was massive, because James was such a remarkable writer. I mean, his material is so good, and he's one of the most underrated guitarists I've ever worked with. His style, everybody I know that plays acoustic guitar wants so desperately to be able to play guitar like James Taylor, but he's never really thought of in that way by the public. But he's amazing. And when I started working with Phil Collins, it was the same kind of thing. I had so much admiration for him from, all the stuff he did with Brand X and Genesis. And when I finally got to start, working with him as a solo artist, it had a huge impact. But almost everybody that I've worked with, there's something in what they do that leaves a mark on you. And I really, I feel really fortunate to have been able to be involved with so many different kinds of artists over the years that it's been a wonderful journey for me.
I can't imagine that if ever being in the same room as Dolly Parton, talk about a person with the influence to make the world better.
Yeah. And the thing that I love about, we've been friends for many, many, many years. And the thing I love about Dolly is what you see is exactly what you get. It's not like there's the showbiz Dolly and then there's that other Dolly. She is absolutely one of the most beautiful spirits I've ever known. Her love of humanity and her efforts to make the world a better place. When she walks into a studio or anything she's doing, she's an absolute professional. But I remember we did a movie many years ago called Rhinestone, and it was Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone in it. And I remember I had to drive. Dolly had an apartment in town, and when I would go to the lot to work, because they had me, I was part of the band that was in the movie. So we were on set every day and all this. But I had to drive by her. So she said, rather than the studio sending a car, I would just pick her up every day and drive her to the studio. And it was interesting because when Stallone would get there, he would arrive in his limo and go right to his trailer, and he'd be in his trailer until it was time to work. And I would arrive with Dolly, and Dolly went out and said hi to every extra, everybody involved in it. She would eat lunch with all the grips and everybody there. It was like, she's just like real folk. And so if you sit there and you go, I really like Dolly, it's well-deserved because she's a remarkable human being.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear. It's just it just confirms what your heart already tells you.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than the disappointment of having somebody who you think is one way, and then when you finally meet them, you go, what an asshole. Jesus, I never want to see that person again. Get me out of here. They're unclean, kind of thing.
It's
not many of them, but every once in a while you come across one, and you just know that if you ever get a call for that person again, you say no.
Rather not.
Yeah. Stay home, play with the dogs.
It's like, you mentioned the sycophants earlier, how much damage people do telling someone all the time how amazing they are and how famous they are and how talented, whatever. And it's in a way, it's dehumanizing, isn't it? When you put people on this pedestal and then they disconnect.
Yeah, well, they believe their press, and they could be very talented and all that, but the people that are around them aren't going to ever tell them the other side. They're not going to be honest with them that if they're doing something that isn't good for them, they're not saying don't do that, and that's not going to be good. But most of the time, those are the people who have been hired to be assistants or they're kind of these phony friends that want to be around them to kind of be a part of it. And they sort of take on this like almost Svengali kind of a role in their lives. And you go, everybody, it's not going to be perfect all the time. You need somebody with a voice of reason around you. And you may be incredibly talented, but you're not the most talented person in the world and all that. And you always have to strive to try to get better and work harder on your craft. So, you know, it's a drag. And a lot of times I've been around artists like that have those kind of people around them. And sometimes you just kind of go, I don't care if I get hired again or not, but I'm going to have a talk with this person and say, this isn't cool. These people are not helping you. They're really, really a drag. And they may take offense at that because they like having people around them who are telling them all the time that there's nobody better, that they're the greatest singer or the greatest artist or whatever. But sometimes those careers are fairly short-lived.
I remember when I was an actor with this company, and I knew that there were people who could do my job better than me, that were better actors than me, better organizers, because we had to book our own performances. So we were like a small business and a missionary organization kind of meshed together.
Yeah.
And I knew that there were people who could do it better than me, but I was the one who showed up. And so I don't think it's always like the most talented person that makes it, but the person who shows up.
You're absolutely right. You know, there's a great deal to be said for consistency and for respecting the job that you call for. I mean, it's like when I talk to players about being a professional, I always say, you know, it's like when you get called to do a recording session and the downbeat is 10 a.m., you know, in the morning. That's 10 a.m. is not when you're pulling in the parking lot. You know, if you're there at like 9:30, you've got all your gear in order, you've tuned up. If there's music on a stand, I see kids behind you.
Yes.
Santa Claus is here.
Santa?
Merry almost Christmas. Who do we have here?
Which twin are you? This is Amelia.
Hi, Amelia.
They look exactly the same, so sometimes they just have to ask.
Well, she's adorable.
Thanks.
How old?
They're going to turn 5 in August.
Wow. Happy birthday almost.
Yeah.
Så heter dina hundar. What do your puppies named?
You said, what are your dogs named?
My dogs' names are Marcello and Rossano.
Wow.
My wife really liked Marcello Mostriani, the actor, and Rossano Brazzi, the actor. So she named the boys after them.
Fancy names, huh? Okay, go back to Papa now. Thank you. So what were you saying? Darn it.
Oh, who cares? We've got to see your kid. No, I think I was talking about, like, you know, showing up and being professional at, like, you know, I mean, there's a like when I do clinics, I always really emphasize things like that, because generally a lot of times the people that show up to the clinics are already good musicians, but they don't really understand how the business works and what your obligations are. And I always tell them, I said, look, at when the phone rings, you have two options. You can say yes or no. But if you say yes, it comes with obligations. And when you get hired to do a session, you are there on time, you're focused, you go in and you get involved with it. The first thing I like to do is, if I'm working with a new artist, when I get to work, sometimes the artist isn't there yet. I mean, they might be the last one to show up or whatever. But as soon as the artist is there, I go up and introduce myself, say hi, and just want to break the ice. Let's just kind of hang and get in. We're all in this together. Let's do it, rather than them coming in and looking through a window at a bunch of people that maybe they've seen on stage or on albums, and they start kind of getting freaked out. Yeah. Yeah, so it's really great just to immediately just go up and kind of disarm the situation and go, man, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to today. Let's have some fun and stuff. And and you try to create as comfortable a work environment as you possibly can. It doesn't mean going in and kissing anybody's butt or anything like that, but just, doing the right, just making the work environment as comfortable for everybody as you possibly can.
Talking about comfortable work environment, when I saw a clip of you performing, I don't even remember who it was with, I just noticed the look on your face of just like, I'm home, like just enjoying it. Like it's not a work, any kind of work at all. Just moving around on stage with the instrument you've loved for so long, with people that you trust.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the whole thing. When you're up there, it's magic. It's to me, that is the coolest place I can think of being, is with great other players on stage, entertaining people and doing what we love to do. Yeah. So, I mean, that's my comfort zone. And it's like all the players I know, I mean, when we talk about touring, most everybody says, look, we do all the shows for free and we get paid to kill 21 hours a day. Because when you walk on that stage, you really can't put a monetary value on what that's all about. That transcends business and all that. That puts you in a very spiritual, different space, but leaving and missing your family and I go on the road for a long time. I love driving, and suddenly I don't drive for months. I'm on the road and you're being driven everywhere. And, and there's just so many things, the familiar things in your life that you sacrifice to go touring. But the minute you walk on the stage, all that stuff disappears, and then all of a sudden why you're there, and it's great. It doesn't get any better than that. So yeah, it's a bizarre life. So many people, like when I'm going on a tour, like friends of my wife, they'll say, "So what's he doing?" And she's going, "Oh, he's in Italy now, and then they're going to Germany, whatever." And they're going, "Oh, why didn't you go? God, what a great vacation." And we just have to go, we're not on vacation. We're working, and we're not stopping to sightsee or anything. I mean, you might see something out the window of a bus or something. You go, "Oh, that castle, look at that. It'd be great to go check that." No, we got to get to sound check, So it's like the only time my wife really would ever come out on the road is if we were doing like a week in London or a week in Paris or something like that. Otherwise, she would just rather get a girlfriend and go on vacation. And I just stay home and take care of things and work, do studio work, or just work around the house. So it's a bizarre life, but most people outside of it have no clue. I mean, if you've traveled for what you guys did and stuff too, I mean, you've seen it, and it's an arduous life.
Yeah, the most exhausting part for me, because I was still fairly young back in those days, yeah, is the mental awakeness, of having to be your best, most polite, out there and ready to entertain and stuff self. Like when you're on stage, the energy's there. You have the adrenaline. When you're performing, the adrenaline's there. And then like an hour later, all the adrenaline sinks to your toes and you're just a shell of yourself.
Well, there was a drummer I worked with. He's no longer with us, but named Carlos Vega. And we toured for a long time with James Taylor. And every night we would finish the shows. And Carlos and I would look at each other and go, from God to cod. Because one moment you're up there like a god, and the next minute you're a cod. We're getting on the bus going, "You want to watch a video?" I mean, it's like this huge height and all this energy that you had is, like you said, it's down in your feet, and you're kind of at this point going, well, let's see, now we've got an 8-hour drive. And, so it's the audience sees the facade, the show, but they have no idea how much goes in the rest of that day. And there have been tours where I've worked with the crew. I've gone as a crew member and do the shows because it goes so much faster when you're loading and unloading trucks and setting up and stuff, rather than just sitting on a bus for hours on end. I get really anxious, and I just, come on, give me something to do. And so I would go out and just say, well, let me travel for a while with the crew and help do that, and take my work gloves with me and stuff. It's fun.
And then at a certain point, people are like, what the heck are you doing here?
Well, it would be funny if you were working, doing stuff with a local crew, and you're just hanging with everybody for a few hours doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you go, I'll be back a little later. I got to run right now. And they kind of look at you. And then next thing, they look up on the stage and you're up there playing the show. And then you come, and then the band gets on the bus and leaves. And then you're right back there again in your overalls and work gloves going, well, let's get to work. And they're going, what the hell's going on here? This is, is it exactly. But you do what you got to do to get through all of this. And that's the way it goes. So everybody finds, see, I'm not a sleeper. I sleep about 3 hours a night. So for me, for me, the bus trips and stuff get long, where I know some guys, they'll climb in a bunk and they can sleep for 12 hours and every night. I mean, that's the way their metabolism is. And for me, I'm too hyper, ADHD, probably type A. So I really have to find activities all the time. And one of the greatest salvations has been when they actually started putting internet on the buses. So I could, while everybody was sleeping, I could be up working and emailing and calling people on Skype and looking at YouTube or watching movies and things like that. So that really helped diminish some of the boredom out there on the road, to have that opportunity.
Wow. Have you always, like your whole life, had what's it called? Insomnia. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. So, but it's not like I walk around feeling tired because I haven't slept. I'm just never tired. I figure when I die, I'll catch up.
Perpetual optimism.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are you proud of?
Wow. Good question. I think, and this is only my looking at it, but I think if I'm proud of anything, that I've really gone through life without trying to be positive, not hurting anybody or doing anything, just doing things that I feel have contributed to the well-being of the community. But lots of things. I'm real proud of so many of the relationships that I've developed over the years, and friendships, because it's kind of like when I do a session, there's a lot of sessions that I've done over the years where it wasn't just a job. I'm still friends with the artists we worked with. We may have only worked 30 years ago on an album, but we still talk and have stayed in touch and stuff. So to me, this transcends a job. This is really, as you guys probably felt when you were doing what you were doing, it's almost a calling. You really have to, you feel this is what you're cut out for. This is your DNA. Mm. And I love it. I love it. The only thing that would make me stop would be as if I became infirmed in any way where I couldn't play anymore. And at that point, then I'd probably just start annoying everybody and bug the hell out of them. So,
well, YouTube will be around forever. I'm sure of it.
I think so.
So that is definitely something to be proud of. Not just the physical career, but knowing that you did it well and with a good heart.
Yeah, and that you were able to touch a lot of people, and maybe because one of the things that's great when you're gigging is somebody might be in that audience who just had one of the worst days of their life, yet they've come to that concert and they've left, if nothing else, for a couple of hours, they've been uplifted and they've gotten away from this kind of thing that they probably may have to go back and address and still deal with. But it's a real special thing to be able to do. And I never take it for granted. It's one of those things you always kind of just pinch yourself and realize how fortunate you are to be able to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously feel that right now, pinching myself, getting the chance to talk with you. Like this kid from Utah that's got under 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, like.
But it's great. it's great. You're living the life that you have, and just seeing your beautiful child jump in your lap there, and know that there's a matching bookend and with that and stuff, and you're probably in a pretty idyllic place on that island, I would think. So, it sounds like you're doing all the right things.
Thanks. I'm trying. I'm making up for some lost time with where I was raised some, homophobic, sad things, and I'm fixing that now. I'm making videos to be an ally and to spread more compassion and more love out there.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, because I know there's these issues that we have to address every day, where I always kind of look at it as though we have at the end of the day, we have such a short time on this planet. It seems like yesterday I was like 21 getting started on career and all that, and now I'll be 74 in like a week. And you just kind of go, man, it went quick. And you see how many people use this as such a negative, destructive time. And then they're gone. It doesn't matter if you've got $1 trillion or if you got nothing. At the end of the day, you're gone. And how do you want to live that life? And so many people live it just attacking other people and attacking ideologies. And you go, man, just be cool. Just be cool.
Just love one another.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to run. We have our band Zoom.
Right.
Is in 3 minutes, and our weekly business meeting. But I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to talk to you.
Thank you.
And if you ever want to do a part 2, feel free to contact me.
Great. So I would love that. So the way I end my conversations is I give hugs. Hugs. Digital hugs. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And always here for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Best to your family.
Thank you. Best to yours. Bye.
Bye-bye.